share the link in the chat for that. This event is part of a new series that we've launched to uplift Asian voices, to celebrate the diversity of Asian cultures in Vancouver and push back against discrimination in our communities. It is generously funded by Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, and we're very grateful for their support in making this happen. So again, let's move on the chat. Make sure your little blue button at the bottom of the chat screen there says everyone. And feel free, like I said, to give shout outs and high fives. Put your questions in the Q&A box. We are going to have a Q&A at the end of the session tonight. You can also put them in the chat, but it's a little bit easier if you can throw them in the Q&A for us. Okay, so I am going to introduce our moderator for the evening. Kimmortal is a queer, non-binary Filipinx Canadian artist settler based on the unceded Coast Salish territory. Their gifted ancestors are from Pugnasi, Nan, and Negros Occidental, and they belong to a big circle of queer trans femme Filipinx healers. Kim is a powerful and soulful multidisciplinary artist, artivist in rap, song, theater, poetry, and visual art. So please welcome to the stage, Kimmortal. It's all yours, Kim.
Hello, everybody. Hi, folks. My name is Kimmortal. My pronouns are they, them. I'm currently calling in on Zoom from the unceded Coast Salish territories of the Squamish, Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and the Coquitlam peoples. I am really stoked to be a part of this amazing event that's uplifting my fellow Kapwa, Patrick de Belen, Saul Diana, Lorica, and Mildred German. And I'm just really stoked that this is happening and that you get to hear from my peers. So we're just going to jump right into it. What we're going to do is we're going to go through each of the poets. I'm going to read their bio. we're going to share their work. We're going to go through each person, and then everyone's going to turn on their camera after everyone's shared. And then we're just going to go right into an engaging panel of many awesome questions. After that, there's a Q&A. So it's open to the public, all you 52 participants to ask questions. So let's get into it. The first poet performer on this amazing roster is Patrick de Belen. Patrick is a Toronto-based Filipino spoken word poet, performer, speaker, host, and educator whose formidable acclaim as a performance artist and writer is equaled by his commitment to his community and his status as an enduring source of insight, energy, and mentorship for young poets across North America. We are going to be sharing a film by Patrick, which is going to be queued up by VPL. Let's check it out. Yes, there it is.
I'm scared of heights. I heard it's lonely at the top. Dying alone is a given, but living alone is not. I'm scared of being complacent. I'm hoping for something different, that I'll need a life's worth of photos first before I can figure out what's missing. I'm scared of people thinking that I have a boring life, so I delete photos when they get less than 100 likes. I'm scared that I don't even know if I want to be happy, or just find a way to fix it, burn it all down, or if I just need someone to listen. I'm scared of kicking the bucket with a bucket list in my hand, to have grown and withered and still never been a man when it counted most. And I'm scared of being broke and never knowing when I'm rich, and the benefits of a bag can't buy time spent with your kids. And I'm scared of revolving doors, how I'll do all the work just to miss the window, end up right where I was before, never having much but always wanting more. Give up the life so I could hate mine, can't make money or make time, and they're wondering why we even moved here for. I'm scared of being 60, with a wife that never wants to get naked with me, faking a smile at family parties for stupid reasons, like forcing it for the kids as if we didn't already see it. Grow up and then repeat it. scared of change and everything staying the same. And if all my hands are due when I don't know what to say. And so I'm always fucking talking, filling dead space, looking for options to fix my problems rather than actually talk about them. I'm scared of losing the people I love, and the people that love losing me. That's why I don't own a gun, drive drunk, or spend too much time on the balcony. I just know how fragile life could be. And I'm scared that we could just stare at death and laugh. Maybe that's just where we're at. And I'm scared that I don't care whether it's you or me. Life is nice, we're just not too attached. And I don't know what to do with that. I'm scared that no one will love me unless I learn to love myself. When at this moment, I'm staying alive for someone else. And look, I may not be the biggest fan of me, but honestly, part of me thinks that hope and a reflection kind of helps. And what scares me most is that we don't talk about what scares us. That we'll share everything but what's behind the camera. You said you fear the unknown, but you and me, we met at random. So maybe this time, we don't all feel so abandoned. Cause more than heights, I'm scared of being underground. Without saying any of this out loud. More than heights, I'm scared of being underground. Without saying any of this out loud.
Oh, hell yeah. Thank you so much, Patrick. Beautiful, amazing work. Give it up from wherever you are with the hand claps and the snaps and the ums. Even though we can't hear you, perhaps we feel each other right now. Thank you, Patrick. All right, we're gonna move on to our second performer. Clap, 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 claps, more claps. Saul Diana, my friend, also based here in unceded Coast Salish territory. Yay, we get a wave. Awesome. So Saul Diana, I'm going to just read that bio. Saul is a spoken word artist born and raised on the traditional, ancestral, unceded, and occupied lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. He is of mixed Filipino and Scottish background and credits the Filipino artists he grew up around as his biggest influences. Saul's biggest hope is for a future where diasporic Filipinx youth are connected as a cohesive community, where their voices are heard and their humanities are affirmed. Thank you, Saul, for being here.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks for everyone for being here. Thank you, Patrick, for that awesome piece at the beginning. I'm excited to be here and excited to share space with all these awesome creators. I'm going to share a quick piece. This one is dedicated to a friend that our community lost in the summer, Kuya Eric, aka DJ Wondercut, DJ and turntablist that went missing and unfortunately lost his life in the summer. And so this piece is for him. And I had the honor of writing this piece with two fellow friends. And this is my piece from that poem. It's called For Wondercut. And if VPL, when you get the chance, if you could cue that PDF, perfect. There we are. Okay. For Wondercut. In the stillness of departure, a stone's throw from unraveling into dust, I sit and I reflect on two things. Are you truly gone? And what is in the name Wondercut, if not a manifesto about where we've been and where we are trying to go? See, to wonder, as in to dream, to imagine a world better than this, and to cut, as in to scratch, to chop like our ancestors, swinging bolos back in the day, beating back conquistadors. Wondercut is the name of someone who knows he's champion. Looking life straight in the eye, hit it with a 1-2. When he's on the 1-2s, you best check your P's and Q's. Mic check, 1-2, check hook. When the record scratch, uppercut. When the beat breaks, you know it's Wondercut. He makes his mark like he's here to stay. And make your mark you did. If there's 1-2 things you know how to do, it's to do it well and to do it wondrous. We broadcasted your face over the Queensboro Bridge. knowing that somewhere, someone would be chin lifted into recognizing that opening salvo blast of a smile that stretches for miles on end. And if not that, then the sacred spirit ink engraved into your skin like ancestral patchwork, a resounding no, you are not gone. Look at how you brought us together. Look at how we wear our W's on our chest like emblems. Look at Kaya and to honor what is in a name, but a commitment towards forever. The way we forever chant wonder cut forever when we cut through all else, sometimes all we are left with is wonder, dreams, and these divine visions, the process of constructing a better tomorrow, constructing forever. What is in the name? Wonder cut, but 1, 2 love letters to the people scratched into our hearts, reminding us what is possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Saul. Thank you. Beautiful. Rest in power to Eric. Rest in power, Wondercut. I still remember when Saul shared that poem during Wondercut's celebration of life. And just to see those words again and hear them is like beautiful. It's the power of gathering together around poetry and word and remembrance. Our next poet, comedian, writer, performer is Tin Lorica. And Tin is a comedian. Tin is a writer, also based in Vancouver on the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. And Tin has been featured on Just for Laughs, Originals, Stand Up BC, Grossly Underfunded Circus, the compilation album, which came out in November 2021. Tin also co-hosts Millennial Line, which is a comedy and poetry series, as well as Yellow Fever, an all Asian comedy show, which has also been featured at JFL Northwest. Give it up for Tin. I think Tin is actually going to be sharing a poem live.
Thanks, Kim. I forgot to mention in that bio too that I came out with my chapbook called Soft Armor, which came out with Rahila's Coast Press, which is a local chapbook press here in Vancouver. It came out in November 2021. I don't think you can buy it anymore, but I am going to be sharing one big poem and one small poem. This poem is called Paalam. Some nights, I love myself enough to leave the party. Anxiety is a whisper network that's unsupportive and also looking out for you. Sometimes it's more interesting than rude when you don't announce you're leaving. The possibility of this sweetens the air on a Thursday night on the way to the party. When I leave, I go with a canned excuse that runs a few sentences too long. If I stay, I will talk about my mother, which I don't mean to weaponize. I don't want to talk about my mother. It feels disingenuous to have all my neuroses, fear of losing my keys, hair, beauty, youth, homeland, relative stability, etc., compartmentalized into mommy issues. There are things more urgent than this bullshit melancholic narrative written into trite verses about going back to my roots, a mother tongue plagued with imposter syndrome on top of imposter syndrome. From re-inhabiting a language I spoke for the first 12 years of my life, slipping on the syllables to resurrect a ghost. Instead, I conjure up a bedsheet apparition, cry only in English, receive a massage, clumsily tell you where my pain is, pointing underneath my shoulder blade, only to find that the pain has migrated. It is both an heirloom and a travel document. My body hurts from work, or I work until my body hurts. This is my body now. I am not caught between two worlds. I am talking to you reluctantly at this party, where I have revealed far too much again. My face flushed with hiya, I grit my teeth through our grateful codes of conduct, the protocol of a long goodbye. Finally, I managed to utter, pagod na ako, may pasok na naman bukas. Thank you for having me anyway. So that's that poem. I'm going to be reading my second and last poem. It's just a short one that's fun. This reminds me of pre-pandemic going to parties. It's called Party Tricks, Thor's Palace. I'm in a strange house. I feel compelled to not hold your hand. I'm doing bits at the party, telling everybody how normal I am, putting Tums in their candy bowl, drinking tequila without the lime. People tell me I'm funny. I tell everyone things they didn't ask to hear. They tell me to go home. That's it for me. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tin. Thank you for pulling the tears, helping it flow. One thing that I would like to say before we call on the next amazing performer is I really encourage people that are watching to feel free to emoji those claps or those fires or those hearts, or to literally write clapping. Or if you wish to also like write what sticks with you, like maybe you want to reiterate what someone just said. I love utilizing the chat because you can't do that in a live performance. It's kind of cool. All right. The next performer is Mildred Grace German. Mildred is a Filipino Canadian multidisciplinary artist born and raised in the Philippines. She came to Canada after being sponsored by her mother, who came here first to work. Her experiences of forced migration and as a Filipino migrant youth in Canada has opened her eyes to the many issues affecting the world today. Art is like oxygen for her. Give it up for Mildred. We're going to be cueing a film.
Water is life. What is life? Water is life. What is life? Water is life. What is life? Water is life. Water is life. Conquer my thirst. Conquer my thirst. Conquer my thirst. Soothe the drying throat. Conquer my thirst. What a wonderful world. What a wonderful single drop of water that flows to the rivers, to the seas, to the oceans, cover the earth, to sustain life. We are given this paradise, this beautiful earth, with all its goodness and grace, and all the wonders of the universe that is beyond. From clean water to clean air, to the ground we lay our heads to sleep and heal. The green fields and forests, all the nutrients that nourish not only the body but also the soul. In every drop of rain, in every form of clouds, in every sip of water, conquer my thirst, conquer my thirst, conquer my thirst. Soothe the drying throats, the baby's cries, every breath we take, every heartbeat, every drop of sweat and blood and hard work. Water is everywhere. Water is life. What is life? 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 What is life? What is life? The greed pollutes what is good. The greed corrupts the earth, plunders the earth. The unbearable greed of power, the pollution around opens our eyes to the actions taken, the overwhelming distraction, the overwhelming oppression, the overwhelming attacks against marginalized sectors, the wars against nations, the hunger to live by, from oppression after oppression, to the massive flights of forced migration, to the impacts of family separation, to the impacts of wars. Without nothing to eat and drink, untimely death. We bear the question, where is peace? We bear the question, what is peace? We bear the question, will there ever be peace? We use water to heal. We use water to cleanse. We use water to make amends. We use water to express our souls. Swim in oceans with other living things. There are fish, sharks, whales, turtles, and more. We swim not as one, not alone. The vastness of this sea with many, many more. Many more we do not see. We see the living and the non-living. We see what we see and there are more we do not see. We are connected by the oceans, like the lifeblood of our planet Earth, like the womb of our mothers, and all the streams, and all the life forces. Water is life. What is life? Water is life. What is life? Water is life. What is life? What is life? A body made of water, with veins so red that flows to a red heart, to a heart so battered and repeatedly hurt. We are proud.
Wow. Give it up for Mildred in the chat. Thank you so much, Mildred. Thank you, Saul, Tin, and Patrick. We're just going to ask you guys to show your beautiful faces as we commence on this dialogue. Amazing work. Yes. Hey. All right. So I'm going to start with the first question. And why don't we just go in order of how we shared the poems? So my first question is, we're just going to, I'm curious about this. What have you each been excited about lately within the realm of poetry and art and performance? What has been exciting you? And we'll
I mean, I
start
have to
with
go
Patrick.
first.
Yeah.
Okay,
Is that
yeah, I
okay?
have to go first. No, that's fine. I'm prepared, right? But I'm also looking through the questions again. Um, when I'm excited about poetry, I mean, I don't know. I think that um any like storyteller kind of notices the importance of stories coming out of a 2-year pandemic and just moving forward. And I think for the act of learning and commemorating and there's just so many reasons for stories right now, whether or not that's poetry or like anything else. So I guess that's what I could say with that, is that like I think the creators of stories and poems, I think see a need. Like I think there's a general kind of awareness that these are important coming out of a pandemic, to like enjoy these stories and like be entertained by them and learn from them. So I'm excited about that.
Thank you, Patrick. Saul, what have you been excited about lately within the realm of poetry or art or performance?
Yeah, I want to echo what Patrick said about learning and commemorating. I think those two things in like my piece specifically really influenced that writing and this event itself, to be able to connect and to share with other really cool folks in the community, and just being able to witness artists in the community thriving. Like I'm thinking of Francis Arevalo. I'm not sure if he's in the audience, but like he's a good friend and he's a Juno nominated producer. Like that's so cool. And we're making space for ourselves. And Kim, you have a single coming out soon, and you were just shouted out by AOC. Like that's amazing.
Ooh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Saul.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Amazing. Thank you, Saul. 10. What have you been excited about lately?
To be quite honest, I feel like it takes a lot for me to be excited about something, especially from the last couple of years. Like since COVID, like I just been on Twitter a lot, and I follow a lot of writers and artists, and we're all like so unwell. Like I see all these artists kind of like unravel and like become unhinged. And honestly, it's not art that they're making necessarily, because I don't know, I'm just reading their tweets, really appreciating people who are being kind of open and honest about their experiences from the last couple of years, because there was so much anti-Indigenous, anti-Black, surging anti-Asian violence, and yeah, I mean, if you're any of those people, like, and you're an artist, you may have not had the highest creative output. I don't know. I feel like any art that's going to come in the next couple of years that is about COVID and everything that happened in the last couple of years will be important. I think like people don't want to see or hear about COVID right now, like in the movies and TV shows that they watch. I get it, but yeah, I know it's like definitely not a fun and sexy time right now. I don't know if that answered your question, but
it totally did.
I'm gonna
totally
stop
did.
there.
Thank you, 10. Thank you. Mildred?
For me, art is really important during these critical times. In critical times, art serves its purpose, and we witness it even though we are isolated in our homes. We watch a lot of movies, listen to a lot of music, but then there's not a lot of appreciation to the arts. And understandably, coming from an artist, I understand there's a lot of things going on, but it's also a good time to appreciate and thank the artists who also built all these possibilities for us to thrive and survive the pandemic, because nobody has
especially the many emotions and the many thoughts that are happening amidst the chaos is really important. With the role of the artist, we have to understand and be thankful that art has been here since time immemorial, and the role of the artist also goes along with that fact. So it's very interesting how art will come during and after the pandemic. So I look forward to that. But I want to start with the community. I want to start with the community, the people, on how they feel. It's a good time for healing as well, and also look into the issues that are affecting us. And that's really important. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. First off, like I wanted to also say thank you so much for sharing your work. Each piece, like, wow. I needed that. I really miss like open mics and like just it kind of I feel that energy. One thing I've been thinking about lately is how I was part of a panel last week, and one of the artists said, "I am not self-made. I am a product of my community." An accumulation of all my teachers, my elders, my mentors, young and old, spaces that are organized, that I've accessed, all these things. And I was curious with each of you, if you could share or name some of those, some of those things that have inspired you or challenged you to be the poets and the artists that you are today.
I can start.
Yeah. We
I
can go
take-
backwards. Let's go backwards.
Yes.
Mildred, Tin, Saul, Patrick. Boom.
Yes, thank you. I take inspiration from the love and struggle of my people. I look back on the history of the struggle and also the victories of my people. And that is reflected in the diaspora as well. And the realities of what's happening globally, we are part of that history. And it's a very critical time. So I encourage every youth, Filipino youth, youth of color, to use this time and space and our voices to empower each other and know that we are part of the history making. And that's pretty much a very powerful notion, inspiration that I took from the mentors, the elders. And that is something that we can pass on to uplift that spirit of kapwa and that kinship that we share, and also the connection that we have in a general perspective of the universe. Like I mentioned in my poem, water is life, and we are connected to every molecules in that. The water that has been here since time immemorial is really a reflection of our existence and our survival. And it's a good start to even have a conversation with that we are not isolated in any way if we just look into the things that really connect us and not forgetting these values. So I take inspiration from the past, the present, and the future. And all this lifetime that we share and the moments are really something that we can carry on as we go on. Thank you. I'm really grateful for every youth, for everyone that has shared, and for those who are still supporting the words that we share, especially with the emerging artists. And it's not easy at times sometime, but grateful for all the spaces like this one, to the library as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mildred. Tin.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah. What are can you name some of the teachers or like spaces, inspirations that have grown you or inspired you as an artist today, as a poet and a writer?
Yeah. So I mean, I always kind of wrote poetry here and there, but it wasn't until I was 23, I think that's how old I was in 2017. I don't remember. I signed up for a creative writing weekly workshop called Telling It Bent, which is at the time was a pilot program with the Frank Theater, which is a queer theater company here in Vancouver. Yeah, we met every week. I got connected with the group that I had, which was, we were all queer youth, a lot of us were of color. And it honestly made all the difference for me. Like, I learned to have a lot more confidence in my writing. And yeah, that was pretty much the first time that I had gotten the opportunity to share my work and my words on the stage. And yeah, that was the push that I needed to start performing.
Thanks, Dan. Saul?
Yeah, I like what you said, Kim, about how we're a product of our communities. And I think that's definitely the case for me. So many influences, but if I were to narrow it down, I want to give a shout out to my grade 3 teacher, Miss Mostad, who praised my imagination during journal time. I don't know. I always return to that moment, and I think it was a key figure that brought me into the field of education. And I'm a teacher because of her, and I continue to write because of her. And at the same time, I grew up around a lot of Filipino youth organizers and artists in the early 2000s. Many spoken word artists that again also nurtured that within me. And then when I got to high school, I had an English teacher that really nurtured poetry and spoken word. And my family as well are largely composed of educators and artists in their own way, and continue to influence the way that I write and the way that I engage with different media and different concepts, and influence the way I navigate things through the use of poetry.
So my dad wrote poems for my mom, love poems for my mom. So that's kind of like the first person I saw do like poetry emotionally. I looked up to a lot of rappers to begin with, like, or in comedians. So like Dave Chappelle and like a young Kanye, and like kind of like like anti-establishment kind of related storytelling. And that's what kind of inspired a lot of my young like content. And I did slam, the poetry slam thing, when I went to this Philippine Center for the Arts in Toronto called Kapisanan, which is different now. It's no longer in the place it is. Venues moved around, right, especially during the pandemic. But and there I was doing like a poetry program with this guy named Len Cervantes, who was the facilitator at the time, and he did spoken word, and he was a really cool guy, and kind of like introduced me to like, you know, kind of his Filipino history 101 and like poetry in the Philippines, and like went through like the pre-colonial stuff, and then like Spanish Revolutionary period, and all those kind of just weird, like cool, awesome parts of Filipino history and poetry. And so that's kind of a mentor I had in that sense. And then I met Dwayne Morgan, who runs Up From the Roots, which is an organization that features predominantly Black artists and storytellers, and it's a really awesome platform, and other POCs as well. And so I was one of the people that was on their slam team and open mic and shows, and then he kind of showed me the ropes in terms of spoken word, and taught me about spoken word, and you know, it being a Black art form, and kind of finding my place in that. So yeah, I think those, Dwayne Morgan, Len Cervantes, my parents, young rappers and comedians, kind of all in certain ways have, yeah, like inspired me and mentored me in ways.
Thank you.
Oh, what's up? Oh,
Oh, we got
generally that's to the
shout
host
outs
and
in the
panelists.
chat.
So, yeah, I know.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah, but what's up? Anyways.
Yeah, like Patrick, what you said too about spoken word being a Black art form, along with like hip hop and rap, which is a huge influence in my work. I was wanting to pose to each of us, especially as we continue to take up space as Filipinx artists here on Turtle Island. What are you learning? What are you still learning, or what have you learned, or what are you unlearning about what it means to be in solidarity with our Black and Indigenous kin through, engaging in the community and sharing our art? Maybe we can pose it to, do you want to start, Tin?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I guess thinking specifically about art, I feel like, what was I reading? Oh, I was on Twitter, because I'm on Twitter all the time. Yeah, something that I recently read on Twitter from Emily Riddle. She's a poet and writer as well. She's lived in Vancouver. I think she lives in Edmonton, Treaty 6 now, about how they were listening to something, and a lot of the time, books by Indigenous authors are like, what did she say? Like, they're like kind of expected to be, oh, I wrote it down actually, the answer to all colonial problems. And yeah, she just like made a great point that like books, or like any art really by Indigenous writers or creators don't have to like do reconciliation, or like, not everything has to be about trauma. And I don't know. I feel like we consume a lot of their pain and suffering, and in turn, like, we should celebrate their art, like about their joy and, about their lives, and not just about trauma all the time. That, I mean, I can acknowledge that's important to learn as well, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like just reiterating what you were saying, like a more growing almost like a self-awareness when we're consuming the work of Indigenous and Black writers, and kind of growing that awareness of like how we're consuming. Is that, yeah, does anyone want to, sorry, go ahead, Tin.
Yeah, no, like, we should just appreciate their art, about just them living their lives, like, does that
Yes.
make sense? Yeah,
Yes.
even someone in the chat was said, yeah, like, do you mean appreciate more Black joy? Yeah, for sure.
Yes. Amazing. Does anyone else want to share?
Yeah, I can just to piggyback on what Tin was saying about recognizing like the sort of twin processes of recognizing trauma, but at the same time amplifying the joy and the everydayness of life, and thinking of futurity as well, because whenever we celebrate or engage with art that is by Indigenous and Black folks, there's often the unfortunate side effect of relegating these communities to people of the past, or as people who are as people of the past. And so I think for me as an artist, I've had the opportunity to meet so many incredible Black and Indigenous artists, and that I have a responsibility to amplify their voices, and to build relationships as well. And I think as a teacher now as well, I've had the unique opportunity to bring in poems and songs and other forms of art from Black and Indigenous artists into the classroom, as well as part of the curriculum. And so that's where I'm at right now, and that's what I'm focusing on.
Thank you. Mildred.
One of my favorite movies is The Great Debaters by Denzel Washington. And I don't know if anybody's seen that movie, but that was really powerful when I first saw it. And it really inspired me. And I'm not Black, I'm Filipino. But when I watch it, it really inspired me in a sense that in that art form, something sparked on me. Something gave me hope and life, and knowing that it was a good journey how I saw it in the movies and the history of that art form and how it was came to be, because we had a panel before about the great debaters and had the opportunity to spoke with some of the crew members who were able to share how the movie went well. Not because I only enjoyed the movie. During that time, I was an out of school youth. So for me to really see the power of those youth who were able to step into the classroom, to do the debating, to go to Harvard and made history is something that I took inspiration. And of course, I honor the history of that. It's part of the social reality that's happening. And with that, we see that the connection is there. And it's a wonderful thing. For me, when culture cross like this, I see it as a beautiful thing. Because art is also a high form of freedom. It is one of the most shareable piece. If we look at the sky, we ask who is the artist of the sky. When we look at the universe, don't we ask who is the artist of the sky or the universe and the stars and the galaxies? Because art has been here since time immemorial. But there are also those who use their free will. When we talk about like art as a form of freedom, we also have to recognize that there are those who use their free will in doing good deeds. That in doing good deeds and spread kindness, there is love and there is always hope. And that is how I felt about that movie. And for that, I take inspiration to that. I am here. I found more the change for future generations. All this suffering.
Oops. I think Mildred kind of cut out there. I don't know if that's just me. Hey.
Oh, I already finished what I said.
Oh, thank you, Mildred. Patrick, did you want to share?
I think there are really great things being said already. I think in terms of like diversifying the kind of Black content you watch and consume and support, and having there be more portrayals of joy and just nuance than what some of the networks provide. There's that like meme of like Black History Month, like going into Netflix and just seeing this like list of like movies that have been just like trauma inspired and focused. And so I think that's important. And also, as Saul was mentioning, like providing platforms when given an opportunity to amplify voices of Black and Indigenous creators, whether that's bringing their poetry into your classroom or featuring them on your stages or interviewing them in your open mics and podcasts and things like that. But it's just like, knowing the reality of what the literary and storytelling community looks like, the industry looks like, understanding that there's a need for certain stories and doing your best to use your voice and your platform and your reach to be a part of that conversation. Yeah.
Amazing. I just wanted to thank you all for your thoughtful answers. We have wonderful things happening in the chat, a lot of people sharing their thoughts. especially around the topic of what it means to be in solidarity with our Black and Indigenous kin. One question that's posed by the chat, shout out May Ferrales. I'm thinking about Mildred's reflections on the role of an artist. What role as artists can you or we play in challenging anti-Black racism among Filipinos? Does anyone want to share their thoughts? I feel like when some of the things that was shared as well in the panel is like the stories that we share, the spheres that we take space in, and our responsibility, especially as with the platforms that we hold, to tell the truth. And I love that about poetry and art, is that you can talk about those nuances within ourselves, but also be reflective and critical about what is happening within our community as Filipinx people as well, and how anti-Black racism and anti-Indigenous racism is replicated within our own community. And so like as our roles as educators, as multidisciplinary artists, as comedians, we're able to talk about these things through humor, through wordplay, and through sparking dialogue, which is something that I see as a common thread amongst each of you. And my last question for all of you guys today, because we're at 7:30 and there's still a Q&A, but I'm kind of going to a Q&A kind of place. Can you kind of see that, right? My last question today is, how is poetry a form of celebration and resistance and or survival and or love for you? How is your poetry a form of those things? And maybe we can start with Saul.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think to start, I think it's kind of connected to that, to this last question you posed, Kim, but also to tie in May's question. Like, I think as a community, we're all in very different places when it comes to this conversation about, you know, facing the truth of anti-Blackness in our communities. And so I think it's a spectrum of where people are their starting points in that conversation. And so for some, it might just be starting with an awareness that like so much of our culture and our identity as a diasporic community draws heavily from Black culture and aesthetics, and even down to the way that we speak in our use of African-American vernacular English. And I see so many folks in my community where there's not even that recognition. And so I think starting there and calling out anti-Black racism when we see it, and especially in our families and our circles. And I think it would be really cool if, like, especially from thinking from an artist standpoint, if we could like move the conversation into how we can like concretely support like Black creators and Black artists. And again, I want to shout out specifically Francis Arevalo, who he recently made a pledge where he every paycheck that he gets from his music, he is going to donate a percentage to a Black Creators Fund. And I think that's a concrete example of how we can, like, from a material standpoint, support Black voices and Black creators and Black futures and Black futurities. And so that's one way I'm thinking of how art can be a way of resistance and a tool for celebration. Like, who are we celebrating, and who are we in relation and community with our art, and as we create art. Yeah.
Thank you, Saul, for those gems. So much there. Let's hit up Patrick.
Can you repeat what?
Yeah, the question.
Yeah.
The question was kind of a big one because I was like, let's make it an open
There's like a
question.
big, yeah,
It's
there's
a
like a
big,
bunch of,
it's a
yeah,
big
there's
blob
a big
within the
one.
question.
Okay.
I just got a question from, okay. What is the question? The question is, how is poetry a form of resistance, survival, love, and celebration for you?
That's a lot of different things.
It is.
And poetry.
You can even choose.
Yeah, poetry is all of those things. To me, it could, in many different ways, depending on what the poem is about. And, but I think it's resistance when I'm being brave and talking about stories that scare me to say in front of maybe some people who I think should hear them, but would make it kind of make them feel uncomfortable. But then there'd be a potential of dialogue being opened up. I think that's when it's resistance, is when I'm brave enough to do something like that, or provide a space and a platform where different stories that are also challenging and uncomfortable to have could also be showcased as well as my own. Love, just like, you know, when I use it for remembrance, and or I use it to honor, or to connect to. And I think love too, you know, it could be like to dig and to introspect and to explore your insides. I think that's also kind of loving yourself, is using poetry to do that. So I think in that way, that, and yeah, so that's resistance and that's love. I don't remember the other one you said. I already forgot. It was three things. I'm sorry, I don't have
That was
a
wonderful.
lot. Okay.
I thought it was
Was
great.
that okay? I can just end it there. Okay.
Oh,
all right.
yeah.
All right, we're good. Thank you.
Thank you. Mildred, you want to share? And then Tin.
I also look into the other artists who faced criticism. I look into the artists who also face criticism or persecution because their artwork came very controversial or timely and crucial. So with that, we can see that the resistance is already present in the art, and it's also remain a very powerful tool. And I hope it continues. There's a lot of barriers still if we look at it, especially with technology. Not everyone has internet, not everyone has the computer, and the COVID-19 pandemic have shown, and we have seen the impacts of all these barriers, from another barrier to another one, then to another one. And there are so many things to do. There are so many things that we can contribute. There is no specific mold on how we can serve the people. There are many ways to serve the people. There are many ways that we can contribute for a better society. And for me, it is also important to know that just surviving and thriving during this time is hard enough. And making it to this time is also part of our history, also is a history in the making. And that is something that is really, really important and part of our resistance already, because who thought that we would have made it here after 500 years?
Yep. Yeah, one thing I keep hearing with you, Mildred, which is something a local poet teacher has said to me, is like, as diasporic Filipinx, we have our own unique stories, and our perspective is important, and it's history in the making. And the last question, or the last person to answer the question, is Tin. And the big blob of a question is, I'm sorry, it's not the best question. It's like it's like 5 questions in one. How is poetry a form of resistance, survival, love, celebration? All those words are like, there's a slash between each. So like pick or choose or all, but how is poetry a form of all those things for you?
Choose my own adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess for me, poetry is, like a weird little archive and proof that I exist. Like in my chapbook, I did dedicate it to Filipinos, because a lot of the poetry that I wrote has been about my mental health struggles and how I've been the one, and my I guess like everyone in my life since like my early 20s, from when I started writing poetry, really has kind of helped me get to the point of being a performer, like you were saying, like we're not self-made, like we are created by the community. But yeah, for me, like my poetry is just me being weird and expressing that to everyone. I don't know. Cheers.
A weird archive to prove that I exist. I love that. That should go on your shirt, Tin. You should get a print of that. All right, here we go. That was that kind of is a wrap on the panel dialogue. Snaps, if you can throw some snaps in the chat for Patrick and Saul and Tin and Mildred for their time and for sharing those gems. I also don't want this to end. We probably have about 10 minutes for the Q&A. If we can have one more question. I'm getting a message, one more question from the chat. But all I'm seeing are hearts and snaps, which is great. So maybe this is where it ends. Well, how about oh wow, there's great questions. Okay. Oh wow. Okay, what question should I do? Okay, I got one question here. In what ways have you seen, whoa, sorry, I'm going to just copy paste this. All right, thanks for bearing with me here. So this is the last question. I'm sorry, folks, that we have to close it here. I'm the one that has to make this call, but this is a great question. And again, just for panelists, if you can just be aware that we have like 9 minutes left. The question is, in what ways have you seen art, poetry, and cultural work in our own Filipino community in Canada evolve over the years and decades, etc.? Time. In one more time. And it's also, I can also write it, drop it in the chat right here. In what ways have you seen art, poetry, and cultural work in our own Filipino community in Canada evolve over the years, decades, etc.?
I could start just so I say mine quick, because I feel like I want everyone to have the time. Okay. I feel like in many ways Filipinos are, especially in the diaspora, are in many ways an invisible race. So for me, the way I've seen it evolve is just being seen and more representation. I'm seeing Filipino actors pop up, and I'm like pulling out my phone and I'm like, are they Filipino? Like, I need to know for sure. Are they half? Are they full? And all that matters. Also just like, or are they just like a different Asian, like, like just saying that they're this Asian, which is like whatever, acting is acting. But like, I think I'm just seeing a lot more of them exist and be seen and represented. And I think that's really beautiful for Filipinxs and Filipinos and Filipinas and all that. So yeah, just more representation, more Filipino artists, creators, and people being seen, which is nice in media.
Amazing, thank you.
Yeah, to respond to Patrick, I think I've also seen that. Like as a kid, the conversation was about how can we be seen as a community, and you know we are here. Shout out to Carlos Sayo, whose master's thesis, the refrain "We are here and we are not here," right? And I think now that, as Patrick said, like representation is increasing. I've noticed in some pockets of the community, the conversation is now turning inward, where it's like, okay, we are recognized as Filipino, but what does it mean to be Filipinx? And I think often folks in this sort of struggle to navigate identity, a lot of us sort of instinctually turn to indigeneity in the Philippines to draw our understandings of what it means to be Filipino. And it would be really cool to continue those types of conversations where like is that a thing that we can do, where we can draw from communities that, you know, we aren't from in so-called Philippines, and what does it even mean to call the Philippines, right? There's so much wrapped up in that as well. And so I think that's where I see one of the conversations going, and I'd love to continue being a part of it as we figure that out.
All important threads. Yes. Thank you, Saul.
Yeah, I wanted to, I feel like I say this in a group of Filipino artists, but I feel like I'm not the most knowledgeable on what's going on in like Filipino art in Canada. But I will say, because I'm more versed in comedy, because that's the bulk of the work that I do. Pre-pandemic in 2019, I had the awesome opportunity to go to Toronto to be part of a comedy festival called Tawa Festival. And honestly, it was like the best time I've had ever in comedy, which is not always the most welcoming or diverse place, but to have like a whole weekend like dedicated to like Filipino comedians, of like, you know, more diverse, you know, we're diverse, whatever, but I mean like queer femme, it's really great to see. And it was put on by Pita Collective. They're like a comedy troupe out there, and they're like doing such good work. And because of the pandemic, they've had to pivot to a lot of TikTok sketches and stuff like that. But they're amazing, and I just like see them like as like a beacon of light for comedy and Filipino representation here.
Yeah, shout out to Tita Collective and Tawa Festival on, you can find them on Instagram as well. And Mildred.
Like growing up in the Philippines, I grew up doing everyday singing the national anthem and doing the panata, and it's very poetical in a sense. But also, not only that, we also had this karaoke's and singing and all the haranas, which is very part of our culture. And I take pride on the romanticism that Filipinos also have. But also there's also this struggle to keep our native languages. And it's both in the Philippines and in Canada. And I've seen that. And I'm seeing it during this time that there's an explosion of technology that we are losing our native languages. Back in the Philippines, even the Waray language is losing, it's fading. And it's sad to see that. And then we come to Canada, you totally can forget what you know about the Filipino language because there's no schooling in here about here anymore. And there's a big expectation for you to speak a colonial language, which is English. And in the Filipino context, it's very colonial that we even speak English. So the struggle to keep our native languages should be part of our struggle as artists, especially word artists, and also to put justice and value in our labor and time and energy to use this as a voice for that and as a stage, because that is something that you cannot erase from us. It's part of our community, our history, and our cultural expressions. And with this, it's also part of our growth and learning, and that we should take pride of. And I think with that, we will continue to be a thriving nation, just like what our ancestors did, because we are all trying our best. I've seen it through the hard work of our people, through the struggle of the youth, both in the Philippines and those who are settled in here, those who have been away from their culture because of the diaspora. And I am grateful for every youth, every fellow Filipinos and kababayans who have shown me our history and our lifestyles and traditions. It's really important at this very critical time. So that is what I can say about the art form that we have right now. And hopefully that it unites us more and not break us or divide us, because it's really a very crucial time. We are already diasporic. We're already out of our ancestral land, and it is a reflection too of our history that we are challenging right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Mildred. All right. Wow. I want to say thank you so much, each one of you, for sharing your knowledge and your poetry. Thank you for your honesty, for your commitment to learning and sharing your learnings with the community and using the stage and your powers to make impacts in the small and big, invisible or visible ways that you do. It was so great to just connect. It feels good. And I want to give it up to the audience that's still here and those who have left. Thank you for listening and taking the time out of your Thursday. What day is it today? Oh, is it Wednesday? Okay. Thank you for taking the day out of your hump day to be here and to listen. Each of the poets are going to drop their socials in the chat right now, their websites or any of their internet rooms to be followed, or I know some folks have a lot of amazing work that lives online. So performers, if you can just drop that in the chat. I also want to thank VPL for hosting these series of events, especially to do it as a way to fight back against anti-Asian racism and to continue to be in solidarity with the anti-racist communities. And much love. If you want to just drop in the chat your appreciation for all the poets as well, participants. And yes, great insight, discussion, and platform. Truly appreciate it. Yes, thank you. Much appreciated. Clap, clap, claps. Amazing. Snaps for you all. Palakpaks. What's palakpaks? Oh, it's claps. Okay, boom. Okay, gotta learn that. Hearts and hands. LOL. Fires. Awesome. I'm just reading all this. Galing. Astig. Congratulations for an aging evening. Philippine Canadian news. Awesome. I'm just reading these because it feels, like sometimes when you just log off Zoom, it's like, all right, done. But that's fine too. But this is nice. Hearts. All right. All right. Well, thank you. So much love. Salamat. Passing it on to Candy.
Thank you, Kimmortal. And thank you, everyone. Kimmortal, Tin, Patrick, Saul and Mildred, you were all amazing tonight. We really appreciate you sharing your stories here with the VPL and with everyone in the audience. And of course, the audience for attending the event tonight. Big shout outs and thank you for all your chat, your wonderful questions. I wish we could get to them all. There's so many brilliant questions there. We appreciate you all coming tonight. A thank you to my colleague Jorge for helping out tonight to keep the event running smoothly. I'm going to put it on the slides right now. I'm supposed to be sharing a link here. As mentioned at the start of the event, this event is funded by Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, and it's very important for us to understand if these events are reaching newcomers and permanent residents. So Jorge is going to share a link to that status form in the chat. It's a citizenship status intake form, and we'd greatly appreciate it if you fill it out. It'll only take a moment or two. And we'd also love to receive your feedback about this event. As a public institution, we are here for you. So we're going to share a link to the feedback form in the chat, which will take you another minute to fill out. A couple of events that we have coming up soon are on tomorrow night, Thursday, March 31st at 7 p.m. VPL's Indigenous Storyteller in Residence, Eden Fine Day, will be here discussing decolonizing the media with Kelsey Kawana of IndigiNews. And my colleague Jorge is going to share a link for that event. And then on Thursday, April the 7th at 7 p.m., we have an artist event that I'm really excited about with Jan Wade, who just closed a show at the Vancouver Art Gallery, and Naya Lewis-Williams, who's a local artist and curator, as well as Lama Mugabo, who's a community planner and works with Hogan's Alley Society. They're all going to be talking about how we can continue to elevate Black voices while addressing systemic inequities in arts organizations. So we're going to share a link to that as well. If you'd like to watch this event, again, it's streamed to our VPL's YouTube page, and also you can watch it afterwards. And Jorge's going to pop a link for that in the chat. So thank you again to everyone for coming tonight. We're going to leave the chat window open for a couple more minutes in case you want to copy any of the links or open any of them up on the chat. So thank you again for coming tonight. Thank you so much to our panelists, and we'll see you again at the next event. Take care, everyone.